Good morning. I'm Jess, Goff. Thank you for joining us today. Each of us brings a separate truth here. We bring the truth of our own life, our own story. We don't come as empty vessels, but as full people, each with our own story and our own truth. We seek to add to our truths and add to our stories. This room is rich with truth, rich with experience. All manner of people are here, needy, joyful, frightened, anxious, bored. We all bring our truth with us. May we all recognize the truth and the story in other lives than our own. May we hear and honor the truths that we all bring as we gather together. Together, we have truths. Together, we have a story. Together, we are a community. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. By its light, may our vision be illumined. By its warmth, may our fellowship be encouraged. And by its flame, may our yearnings for peace, justice, and the life of the Spirit be kindled. Come, let us worship together. Please join me in the responsive reading that's printed in your order of worship. This making of a whole self takes such a very long time. Pieces are not sequential, nor are supplies. We work here, then there, hold up the tattered fabric to the light, sew past dark, intent, use all our thread. Sleeves may come before length, buttons before a rounded neck. We sew at what most needs us, and as it asks, so again. The self is not one thing, once made unaltered, not midnight task alone, not after other work.
Each time we gather for worship, we set aside a moment to expand the caring ministry of our congregation. Together, we recognize the cycles of life and death, the circle of love, compassion, and witness that is at the center of this and every sacred community. We join with parents and teachers and all those whose primary spiritual practice is caring for children, with those who live with grief or chronic pain, with illnesses seen and unseen, with mental disability or addiction. We pray for our neighbors in prison, those who care for families, members in ill health, those who are struggling to stay afloat in the face of poverty. Our lives are blessed by those who knowingly and with curiosity and courage face their final days. We pray for those in harm's way, for the wisdom and strength of the leaders of the world, and for the people of this courageous congregation, as together we live into our longing to embody and help build the beloved community. Will you pray with me now for those we name? We send healing energy to Dana Marduk, who had surgery last week to prepare her broken elbow in an icy fall. She is at home recovering and would love to hear from her friends at Unity. And we are sending more of the same to Lynn Burton, who now has a shiny new screwed-in titanium plate to support the fractured pieces of her left radius wrist bone as they heal after her own icy fall. Be careful out there. So now please speak the names of those you are holding in your heart today. Mary, Heather, Jenny. Eternal Spirit, loving God, help us to claim your presence in all its forms. Help us to pause among the distractions of our days, to see the holy in each other's eyes, to honor the faltering steps we take to move toward one another across differences, to navigate the rocky path of forgiveness of ourselves and one another. Be with us as we bring our whole and hurting selves to the complex challenges of living our values in the many layered spaces we inhabit. Help us to believe that we are loved and that our best efforts are sufficient. We hold in this blessed moment the people of Turkey and Syria as they mourn the unimaginable and continuing tragedy of natural disaster. May we remain humble in the presence of nature's power and take seriously our responsibility to care for the earth as well as for one another. So may it be. Amen. Good morning. In a long ago and far away time, I encountered a riddle which at the time may well have reflected a stuck place in Unitarian Universalist history. Why, it asked, are Unitarian Universalists such poor singers? The answer was because they are too busy reading ahead to see if they agree with the words. This was, I expect, spawned in the waning days of the Unitarian Universalist hymnal entitled Hymns for the Celebration of Life, which was published in 1964 after the merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists. I think that it was an effort to bridge the gap between the more Christocentric Universalists and the humanist-leaning Unitarians, creating a compromise that was equally disagreeable to both. The current hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition, found in the pew racks at Unity Church, as well as most other Unitarian Universalist congregations across perhaps the world, was commissioned in the 1980s when the UU Statement of Principles and Purposes was accepted into the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association. This new hymnal, published in 1993, is organized around the sources of the living tradition, which some refer to as the open canon of Unitarian Universalism. The focus was upon finding ways to reflect the pluralistic nature of our faith tradition. The readings in the back included voices of women and people of color. The hymns included secular songs that reflected a greater spiritual diversity. There were new hymns written by Unitarian Universalists, and old hymns were rewritten to better reflect the inclusive language of our faith that was becoming central to the emerging social consciousness. So one might speculate that this has led to the robust and enthusiastic singing that we hear in many UU congregations today. One might also speculate that one of the trade-offs is that we are no longer really paying attention to the words. I confess that I sing robustly and enthusiastically, whether I believe the words or not, because the music itself and the experience of congregational singing is a powerful spiritual component of our worship, regardless of what we are saying. Perhaps much like the Latin Mass, which unsuspecting Catholics simply accepted on faith. On the other hand, I am a lyrics junkie who fills in words to muzak, the instrumental muzak, even to my own annoyance. Lyrics matter. For better or for worse, they get into our heads, and even when we don't pay attention, affects what happens in there. So imagine my great delight, first of all, being able to give a little history of Unitarian Universalist hymnody. My great delight to find out that while paying attention, that a hymn that I have loved for years has words which, carefully parsed, carry the essence of a singularly important message. The liner notes on this says that it's based upon Paul's letter to the Corinthians, which was about God's love for the people of the early church and its intended impact upon the dissemination of love through human relationships. that love was divine love, born of perfection, setting impossibly high standards. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. Which leaves those of us who wish to express love nearly incapacitated if everything that doesn't include any of that is excluded. I often am given this to read at a wedding, and I say, no, you don't want this at a wedding. This sets a standard that you're not going to be able to meet. And there's a lot of love out there that doesn't quite fit in this formula. This setting, on one hand, makes love into a practice of integrity, the setting that we have just heard and we have just sung together, which invites us to believe in the transformative power of self-love, which extends itself into the love of ourselves and one another. Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gifts to all inspire and have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I possess, and striving so my love profess, but not be given by love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are freed. What fascinates me about these words is the apparent relationship between self-love and the quality of love that we offer to others. Though I may give all I possess, and striving so my love profess, but not be given by love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. As I reflect upon this in relation to integrity, which is February's spiritual practice theme, each verse of this hymn calls out to me as a reminder to align my insides with my outsides. Along with the admonition to practice what I preach, to do unto others as I would have others do unto me, do not ask for what I would not be willing to give, to align my values with my actions, this hymn is a statement of integrity. Each verse as a reminder to attend to the spirit and intention of what I do in service of greater alignment. When I reflect on my years of hearing the stories of people in spiritual and emotional distress, a persistent theme runs through, and it is that pervasive sense of insufficiency, of not measuring up, of not finding any resting place on the road to success, which feels always more and more like just the road away from failure. It is a longing to be made whole. In these times, I am most committed to affirming and promoting our first Unitarian Universalist principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. It is in our times of emotional and spiritual distress that we need to be called back to our own inherent worth and dignity. This is square one. Our capacity to generate authentic connection and abundance in our relationships is often in direct relationship to our capacity to reflect on our own value, to feel worthy of the love that is returned as a result of our actions, as well as that which is offered as grace, which is the purest form of divine love in any faith. So why is this so hard? When I served on the ministry staff of the First Unitarian Society in Madison, Wisconsin, I staffed a 2-year spiritual development program, which involves 6 weekend retreats over the course of the 2 years, where we went deep into spiritual practice and exploration of themes like love and forgiveness and grief and gratitude. In my time there, we did 3 iterations of this program involving about 40 participants per session, including staff. By intention, of course, a strong community formed with each group, and so there was a level of trust that we built by the 2nd or 3rd or 4th retreat. During one of the retreats in year 2 of the first group, we did a large group exercise involving a time of outdoor meditation, during which folks were invited to contemplate the gifts of their being, which they brought to the world. They were asked to find some small token in nature, a stone or a twig or a leaf perhaps, and bring it back to the circle. In this group, there were many kinds of professionals who were also parents and partners, responsible citizens, volunteers, and political activists. Most of them were women. The invitation in the circle was, when moved to do so, to bring their natural offering into the center altar and speak out loud the gift or quality they claimed and offer to the benefit of others. It was excruciating. So much hesitation, so much reluctance to speak of one's own value. But this was a program in which no experience went unprocessed, and so we finally paused to ask, what was that about? Was it a flawed exercise? Were the invitations unclear? So in the end, we spent a lot of time unearthing the cultural messages that make such speaking of such gifts, of claiming one's personal worth and value, so difficult. Well, the easy answers were around avoiding appearances of arrogance and conceit, messages from our mothers who cautioned against tooting our own horn. Anybody get that message? More painful were the responses from people competent by all external standards who, burdened by projected expectations of perfection, did not feel that they had ever measured up and were therefore unable to claim a gift. We found ourselves awash in a sea of insufficiency. These were kind and caring and productive individuals who were exhausted and depleted by their own efforts to offer what they believed the world was asking of them. Though I may give all I possess, and striving so my love profess, but not be given by love within, the profit soon turns strangely thin. How is our capacity for integrity and wholeness compromised by such unclaimed value? And where does all of this self-doubt and striving for perfection come from? Well, maybe living in an economic system that is driven and sustained by created needs for more and better and newer and more improved everything might be a place to start. Maybe having an educational system that uses competition and achievement standards and success-failure ratio as primary motivators actually has the downside of creating a daily minefield of ways to fall short. Maybe growing up in an institutional faith based narrowly on finding ways to work one's way out of original sin could be a contributor. If we read ahead, these are the words of the hymn we are singing. Unlike our Christian forebears, I don't have a vision of salvation. Enough good people have died already on the cross of insufficiency. But I do think that there is such a thing as enough. And that if we continue our striving, that might become our goal. Fending off centuries of cultural and sometimes decades of personal messages that compromise at every turn the reality of our inherent sufficiency is no small task. As we reflect upon the theme of integrity, we are invited to look at wholeness, the ways in which we receive love and grace available from many sources, take it into ourselves, feel it, know it as inherent and as an inherent right, and allow it to integrate with our actions in the world. Each of us is enough. Imperfect? Yep. Longing for more? Of course. Jack O'Keefe, in an essay entitled Spiritual Integrity, writes, "When we are in spiritual integrity, we are embracing our humanity. We are at our best, we are whole and in alignment with an inner wisdom that we have all access to if we choose to listen to it. Being in spiritual integrity requires us to learn the skill of discernment so that our minds grow quiet enough for us to hear its direction. Next, we need to cultivate courage to follow through on what naturally flows from within us. Come, Spirit, come. Our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are freed." Quaker teacher and sage Parker Palmer has written, "Integrity requires that I discern what is integral to my selfhood, what fits and what does not, and that I choose life-giving ways of relating to the forces that converge within me. Do I welcome them or fear them, embrace them or reject them, move with them or against them? By choosing integrity, I become more whole. But wholeness does not mean perfection. It means becoming more real by acknowledging the whole of who I am." So the message today is that you are enough. And right now, I want to challenge you. Let's say it together. I am enough. I am enough. Go forth and live out your great and powerful sufficiency. You were born with inherent worth and dignity. Let's let it out.
Your support of the church is an expression of the promises we make to each other and to the world. The contributions you make enable us to do the work we have pledged to do within our church community and out in the world. Each Sunday, the majority of our offering is passed on to community partners with whom we share common cause. If you would like to nominate an organization to receive our Sunday offering, please complete the nomination form found on Unity's website. Today, the larger portion of our offering will be shared with Literacy Minnesota, an organization believing that literacy has the power to advance equity and justice and envisioning a world where life-changing learning is within everyone's reach. This collection will support English Unlocked, an accessible, student-centered English language literacy curriculum designed for adult learners and aligned with college and career readiness standards. Will the ushers please come forward? Thank you. As a teacher and reading specialist myself, I know well how important and transformative literacy can be. Please join me in giving as generously as you can today. We dedicate these offerings and ourselves to the greater work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love we call community.
Yes. Well, this week at Wellspring Wednesday, we hope you will join for Intersectionality 101. In this program, we will move beyond discussing intersectionality simply as the reality that each of us has multiple identities and begin practicing intersectionality as a frame for how we engage and understand the full complexity of justice work. Unity's second Gender and Faith Retreat will be held on Saturday, March 18th, We will explore our gender journeys, share stories about the intersection of gender and faith in our lives, and work to create a brave space where people of all genders can show up whole and holy in the multiplicity of our identities. And details about both of these offerings, including how to participate, are available in this week's Unity, which is that insert in your order of service. If you are new, please join us after the service for finding yourself at Unity. I think there's a session today, but I'm not sure. Anyway, somebody outside will be able to tell you. I'm not in charge of details. Anyway, Unity's, and though this is last but not least, so listen up. Unity's all-church fundraiser, March 4th, is happening Saturday evening, March 4th. Visit the table in the parish hall and Unity's website to register. View the catalog and make donations, which will be accepted through this coming Friday, February 24th. Bidding begins at noon on March 1st. So mark your calendars and join in the evening on March 4th. And now let us join together in our closing hymn, 299, Make Channels for the Streams of Love. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. Go in peace.